In my previous class guide, I walked you through the generic human classes of Tactics Ogre Reborn. Apparently, y'all appreciated that, as that video is my first to reach 50k views. Thank you for that. Today, we're doing demi-human and bestial classes. Let's begin. Hello everyone, my name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. If you appreciate what I do and want to see more of it, please subscribe. We blew past my goal of 5k for the year, so let's see how much bonus progress we can make before 2023, shall we? We'll be breaking this video into two halves. The first half, we'll be talking about demi-human classes, then we'll get into dragons, beasts, and golems. There's actually more variety here than it might seem at first glance, and let me tell you, the classes unique to demi-humans are no joke. They'll make a valuable addition to your team, so let's discuss them. First off is a class that every Tactics Ogre Reborn player will know. It's Vartan, the class of everyone's favorite birdman, Canopus. Vartans are notable for their extreme versatility. They're powerful flying units that can deal damage with a variety of different weapons and magic types. Those weapons are fists, knives, axes, hammers, cudgels, bows, and crossbows. They can wear medium armor, and they can use pretty much any basic magic type except for dark, though notably, they are only able to use direct attack spells. Their notable skills are actually only two. This is the one place that the Vartan kind of lack. They don't have a lot of very impressive special skills, but that's fine because they're just a good Swiss Army knife character. Those skills are Fey Pact, Hupagano Winds, Stagger and Air Reverse in melee range, and Elkalos Winds, True Strike and Air Touched in melee. So, of course, Fey Pact allows you to recruit Fey creatures. Not super relevant, but it is useful where it's useful, as all recruitment skills are. Hupagano Winds, I believe is the proper pronunciation. Inflicting Stagger and Air Reverse in melee range can be quite nice. Of course, you often wind up equipping air magic on Canopus for this reason, and if you build him in a air-specific team, this will make him a useful debuffer unit. Stagger, just, reducing the enemy's ability to hit and dodge and all that type of good stuff is good. And then Elkalos Winds, giving True Strike and Air Touched in melee, also very, very strong. This is the preferred option, personally, in his personal loadout. Being able to make sure that your attacks land, great, and making sure that your attacks are dealing bonus air damage for no cost other than just this skill activating. Awesome. Very, very nice. Vartan, excellent class. And notably, it's not just Canopus that can be this class. Any wingman can be this class. So, Canopus is just better at it because of his bases. Moving on to Hoplites. This is a class specific to lizards and orcs. It is a tanky frontliner, akin to knights, that can wield swords, axes, spears, hammers, and crossbows. Now, notably, the Hoplite cannot wield any magic, unlike knights, so there's a difference there, but they do have some very nice unique skills to make up for it. They wield heavy armor and shields, of course, and their notable skills are as follows. They have pincer attack, which is always good. Rampart aura, of course, important on any frontliner like this. Rapier glance, which is an AoE stop in melee range, just auto skill triggers randomly, very powerful. And evade, which negates physical attacks, and apostate, which nullifies 2 magic effects. Those last 3 are all auto skills, kind of like phalanx for knights. And again, this is incredibly impressive when these skills activate. I mean, again, just standing in the front line, periodically stopping members of the enemy force, excellent. Being able to evade the next physical attack when you already have very high physical defenses makes it even harder to bring these tanky warriors down, especially when they can also just nullify the next 2 magical effects. Insanely strong. Like, Hoplites are very, very powerful, and they will serve you extremely well if you can recruit one, especially early. So keep an eye out for Lizardmen. Orcs, you're not going to be able to get until the very late game, once you have a Lich that can recruit Umbra, but Lizards definitely can do. Speaking of lizards and orcs, there are 2 other big classes that they bring to the table as well. The first of which is Juggernaut. These are big single-target damagers and status inflictors. Kind of think of the Lizardman version of a Berserker, like the Hoplite is the Lizardman version of a Knight. However, Juggernauts don't have sudden bursts of damage in the same way that Berserkers do, opting instead for more battlefield control. They wield fists, two-handed weapons, axes, spears, hammers, blowguns, and bows, and also wield heavy armor and shields like their Hoplite brethren. Their notable skills are where Juggernauts really begin to shine beyond just their high basic stats. First is Threaten, which inflicts silence and drains enemy MP in melee range. Very interesting skill, don't see a lot of that. Check, which inflicts stop in melee range. Intimidate, which removes skills like Fearful Impact or Dragon's Bane within 2 tile. So again, you want these units to be in the scrum, in the thick of it. They're going to get in there, they're going to deal a lot of damage, be hard to bring down due to their high physical defense and HP, and then they're going to start inflicting statuses left, right, and center. Silencing and draining enemy mages, very strong. Stopping enemy melee fighters, very strong. Intimidate, removing skills, again, like Fearful Impact before they can be used, very, very strong. And one of the only, if not the only way to remove such skills when they are currently active. There's been a lot of confusion that I've seen about how Intimidate works. Basically, if an enemy, again, we'll keep saying Fearful Impact, triggers Fearful Impact and has not yet had the chance to use it, Intimidate can remove that, causing them to lose the ability to use that specific trigger in the future, and will have to spend more MP to reactivate it. So it's a nice little bonus, not something you can really plan for, but it is good to have when it removes things. So very, very nice. Finally, in terms of orcs and lizards, we have the Patriarch/Matriarch, the only magic-specific class unique to these units. These are tanky magic wielders, as opposed to your enchantresses and wizards and warlocks that you'll see in human ranks, being able to wield some heavy armor and mage armor. They're notable for using summons as well as the standard array of magic effects. Like other casters, they can use knives and cudgels, and they can use all base magic except for divine, in addition to that summon magic. Their notable skills are Coax, allowing them to recruit other lizard folk, Intercession, which grants magic immunity to the next magical effect, and Ivory Tower, which allows them to evade the next 2 physical attacks. Kind of the inversion of the Hoplite and their evade and apostate skills. Patriarchs and Matriarchs are quite powerful, not only because they're much harder to bring down than the standard mage, but because their ability to use summons gives them big damage potential above other human units. You won't get summons until late in the game after you've delved into the Palace of the Dead, but once you do, they will make any Patriarchs or Matriarchs you have very tough. I highly recommend picking one of these up where you can. They can be a little bit hard to track down due to the scarcity of lizard folk in Tactics Ogre Reborn, but if you see a Lamia or a lizard man who has this class, definitely try and grab them. They will wind up being useful for you in the long run, and again, they're just a tankier caster even before you get summons, which certainly has its uses. They're not going to get sniped down as easily as Bayon is. Moving on to familiars, we're getting out of the lizards and orcs and into fairies, pumpkins, and gremlins. Familiars are notable as one of the scant few classes that fairies, pumpkins, and gremlins can actually achieve now, seeing as how rogue was removed from player use in the game, and that was one of the key classes that these unit types could wield. That said, familiar is very nice in and of itself. Familiars are versatile hybrid units, akin to rune fencers, that can use any school of direct spells as well as divine and dark support spells. They're notable as well for having unique racial abilities based on what type of race the familiar that you're using is. So fairies and pumpkins and gremlins are all distinct and unique from one another. They can wield daggers, hammers in the form of fans, cudgels, tomes, blowguns, and bows, so again they can attack in melee or at range. They can wield some semi-heavy armor and mage armor. They use all basic direct magic in still spells, which is notable as well for increased attack damage, divine and dark support magic, and their notable skills are kind of split up. I've done something a little interesting here. There's a few general skills that they can all learn, and then again a split where the different races of familiar have different skills. So, the general ones, as far as I am able to tell, is Pumpkin Lure, which makes enemies more likely to attack the user, of questionable value, seeing as how these are not the tankiest units around, but still, could have its uses. And Sanctuary, making it harder for undead to approach them. Then, fairies have Virtuous Dance, dealing AoE dark damage with a chance to charm. Coquettish Kiss, a single target dark damage attack that has a chance to stun. Lingering Kiss, a heal that sacrifices the user's HP to heal the target and, very notably, reduce their RT to 0, granting them an immediate extra action, so kind of think like a healing dancer from Fire Emblem. And a Selfless Kiss, a short-range, single-target removal of stun, silence, and petrify. So fairies, very powerful support units in particular. Probably don't want these on the front line, but they can be quite useful. Next up, we have Pumpkin Heads. They have Crystal Pumpkin, which is a ranged single-target attack, dealing divine damage, which can also destroy undead, notably. Sporagamos, which is a short-range AoE air damage attack, can hit in a large area for a pretty solid amount of damage. Pumpkin Strike, which is a medium-range dark AoE attack that can leaden. And Pumpkin Pie, medium-range AoE heal. And Pumpkin Bomb, a medium-range AoE attack that sacrifices the user to deal big damage. So Pumpkinheads are particularly versatile and definitely more offense-based than their fairy brethren. So quite useful. I haven't had the chance to experiment that much with Pumpkinhead familiars yet, but there's a lot of build potential there for sure. And finally, we have Imps that I haven't been able to do an in-depth analysis on because I haven't been able to recruit one yet. If you guys have an imp and you use it as a familiar, please put in the comments what you utilize it for. I would like to highlight what they can do once I have had the chance to recruit one, but my efforts to do so have been greatly hindered by the Palace of the Dead being the Palace of the Dead. So, apologies on that one. They will function similarly to fairies and tend to have more offensive capabilities like a Pumpkinhead, kind of a mix between the two, but I can't give any direct insight here. My apologies. Moving on from demi-humans, we come to dragons, beasts, and golems. These units are incapable of equipping gear other than accessories, and while some of them have different classes like dragons and golems, they function similarly between those classes. However, there is an added bonus that all dragons and golems and beasts serve as platforms to jump to high places or over obstacles and rampart aura. You can't just stand on one, but if you need some extra height to cross a gap, or you need to be able to jump over rampart aura, or you want to use them as a stepping stone to get through water, you can do that. And while it is kind of a niche ability, you'll sometimes find that you really can navigate far more easily than you would have expected because you have one of these bestial companions with you. As far as their abilities are concerned, I will note what's the same and what's different between those classes that can be switched between while discussing what the best uses for these units are. Let's start with dragons. There are 9 types of dragons in the game, one for each element as well as hydras. Dragons are very tanky units, making them great frontliners. They can all use Rampart Aura, as well as Tail Lash for a slight ranged attack, elemental AoE breath attacks based on their own element with increasing AoE as the level of the skill goes up, and the Dark Elemental Toxic Breath skills. Finally, they get strong auto skills like Dash, which increases their movement range, and Elemental Resonance that matches their element, which reduces enemies' resistance to said element while boosting their own. Dragon's Eye, which causes dragon skills to have 100% accuracy and prevents them from being blocked. And finally, Dragon's Scale, which reduces the damage taken from attacks until the dragon's next turn, while also making the unit that attacked your dragon take the same amount of damage the dragon took. If you've fought any endgame dragons, you are familiar with this skill, and it has probably driven you up the wall, because you probably forgot to take Dragon's Wound on a Dragoon to remove it. All of this makes dragons quite dangerous, whether you're using them or fighting them. Notably, each dragon's elemental breath has a different on-hit effect that it can apply, meaning you can slot in certain dragons to certain teams to get the effects that you want. Whether this means you're building a mono-element team, say a fire team, and you want to include a fire dragon to make use of it debuffing the enemy's defense against fire, or you have an all-magic team and you include a dark dragon to reduce enemy magic defense across the board, you have a range of options here for where you can include dragons. Here's the list of Dragon Breath attacks and what debuffs they can inflict, including the universal Toxic Breath. Flame Breath inflicts Weaken. Frost Breath inflicts False Flight. Vortex Breath inflicts Misstep. Sand Breath inflicts Stagger. Toxic Breath inflicts Poison. Acid Breath inflicts Breach. Thunder Breath inflicts False Strike. Divine Breath inflicts Spoil Spell. Corpse Breath inflicts Enfeeble. And Poison Breath inflicts Poison. And if you are at all unsure of what any of those do, and you can't infer it based off of the name, you can refer to my debuffs and status effects video that goes into all of them. I'm honestly unsure as well what differences, if any, there are between Toxic Breath and Poison Breath. Poison Breath is the Hydra-specific breath attack, so if anyone tests it and notices a difference between the two, maybe the rate at which they inflict poison, or the damage that one poison does over another, or something like that, drop it in the comments. I would love to know, and I don't have a Hydra since I auctioned it off for the Denep quest, so I can't test it. Thank you. Next up, we have Beasts, and unlike dragons, Beasts are not able to change their class. What you see is what you get. However, this means that unlike dragons, Beasts have a wide variety of abilities between each unique type. First up, we have Gryphons. One of the first beasts you are likely to encounter, Gryphons can be quite nasty throughout the entire game. They fly and have the typical high HP of beasts and dragons, but also have a wide variety of strong offensive skills. These are Wind Shot, which is a large AoE wind damage attack, Stun Breath, an AoE dark damage that can stun, notch, Numbing Hook, single target physical damage that can stun, and Blood Siphon, single target physical damage that inflicts life drain, healing the Gryphon for the amount of damage done. They can also dash like most beasts, and are generally the most useful to have on hand for priority assassination missions and navigating tough terrain. This is a trait that they share with their close cousins, the Cockatrice, who are what we will be talking about next. Cockatrice are largely similar to Gryphons, with all the same advantages and disadvantages. However, instead of AoE wind damage and life drain attacks, the Cockatrice specializes in petrification. They have the same Stun Breath and Numbing Hook abilities of Gryphons, but also have Tarot Breath that hits in the same AoE and inflicts petrification. These can be quite nasty to encounter, so make sure you have cures for petrification on hand before you do so, especially if they have Tarot Breath 2, which hits in a massive AoE and can and will petrify half of your squad. If you've done the fight with Gamp, you know, the lava fight with Gamp, you've probably had this happen. Next up, we have my personal favorite beast type in the game, Octopi. These massive mollusks are, of course, quite tanky with big HP pools, but their true strength comes as one of the only water-proficient units in the game. All of the Octopi's abilities are water-focused, and in fact, they can only use their spells if they're in water, or they've procced their Aqua Veil skill, which treats them as if they're in water, even when they're on land. They have Dash, Black Mucus, which inflicts False Strike and Water Reverse on enemies in melee range, Aqua Bubble, a long-range single-target water damage attack, Blue Spiral, a short-range AoE water damage, and Maelstrom, more short-range AoE water damage. My personal favorite, though, is Poison Rain, a large AoE ranged water attack that poisons. And when I say large, I mean it hits a big area, especially early in the game. It's probably the largest AoE attack you're going to see. Unfortunately, Octopi do tend to fall off a bit in the later game, but they are still quite strong for a long time, and will still find their niche uses later on as well. Rounding out the beasts, we have the Cyclops, giants who cast magic and have an array of very odd special attack skills. They can cast all basic schools of attack magic, both direct and indirect, with the exception of Divine. However, they also get the full array of dark status magic as well, so if you're in the market for a tougher-to-kill debuffer, they're pretty decent. The real noteworthy aspect of Cyclops, though, is those odd skills that I mentioned before. These are, and I'm not sure why they're called this, it might be some weird in-joke or something, but Sweaty Palms, a melee attack that inflicts Leaden and Hobble, Reeking Meatballs, a melee attack that inflicts Addle and Misstep, Stinky Feet, a melee attack that inflicts Shackle, and Pirate Breath that inflicts Spoil Heal. These frankly bizarre abilities are accompanied by auto skills Dash, Howl, which stun enemies within 2 tiles, and Glare, which hobbles enemies in melee range. All told, there's a lot of versatility with Cyclops. They have some damage potential and plenty of debuff and status potential as well, but I hesitate to say that they're actually good. Everything they're doing, normal units can do for the most part, often from range as opposed to the melee that Cyclops typically wants to be in, And unlike dedicated casters, they don't get meditate, so you're really forced to choose when and where you're going to be casting spells or rushing in for special ability slaps. Your MP is very limited here, unless you're dumping mana restoring items into these characters, which is, like, not ideal, you know? I mean, is it fun? Sure, absolutely. But there are better beasts, and there are better units in general to do what you're going to be trying to do with the Cyclops. Speaking of which, with beasts out of the way, let's wrap up with Golems. While Golems are a unit type that can change between 4 different classes, functionally, they are all nearly identical. They are even more similar than the various dragon types. The only major difference is minor stat improvements as you move up in ranks, with clay having the lowest bases, followed by stone, then iron, and finally Balder. Now, full disclaimer here, in past versions of the game, these golems did have quite different growths, with clay having the best attack, stone being balanced, iron having the best defense, and Balder having the best magic defense and increased damage against undead. However, I do not yet know if that's still the case. I've not seen specific growth rates for golems at this time, and I only have one, and I've not really used it that much, so I'm not sure. I haven't seen for myself how growths between different classes will affect them. What I do know is that Balder has had its effectiveness against undead removed, which is a shame. They were quite useful in the Palace of the Dead in the past, but unfortunately is what it is. That said then, what do golems actually do? Well, golems are pretty much the ultimate tank. They take very little damage as it is, and then when they activate their Gordian Lock ability, they reduce the damage they take even further, 80% less at level 3, making them nigh unkillable while it's active. They also can use Rampart Aura and Rampart Shadow, making them a solid replacement for Knights on the front lines. However, unlike Knights, golems often want to push forward into the enemy pack, as their unique abilities are adept at dealing AoE damage and disrupting the enemy. These are Raven Eye, a melee range large AoE attack that deals physical damage, and Heaven's Tear, a short range AoE that also deals physical damage. These are accompanied by single target abilities Cruelest Cut, a ranged attack that can stun, and Granite Fist, a ranged punch for good physical damage. Finally, golems also have Broaden Force, an auto skill which increases the area of their Rampart Aura for a turn when it triggers, basically putting it from like level 2 to level 3. This will either make it even harder for the enemy to push on your position, or, if your golem is already in the enemy line, can make it nigh impossible for them to maneuver around or escape the golem if you're in those lines. Personally, I find golems quite fun to use. It's just a shame that there's so little difference between their different forms. I would definitely recommend trying a golem over something like a Cyclops and seeing if it suits your playstyle. They can definitely be fun. And once again, that was a chunky, hefty video. Almost 30 minutes at time of recording. That will be trimmed down, obviously, from what you guys see. But whew, these class guides are beefy. They're also a ton of fun to do. And I hope you all enjoy this one, find it useful just as much as the previous. God, I'd love to see the same amount of numbers on this as on the previous one. There's also one more to go in the unique classes guide that will be coming down the line, so look forward to that. And honestly, depending on how in-depth I go on it, I may really have to split that one into 2 as well, but we'll see. There's a lot of discussion that can be had around some of these unique classes. If you have any questions about anything in this video, let me know in the comments, or if there's anything that needs to be corrected or clarified, please let me know that as well. Thank you all, as always, for the support. Again, my name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. I hope you all have a good night, stay safe and healthy out there, and remember, be good to each other. Bye now.